what I kind of wanted to touch on is like changes of character and like internal structure, because we kind of did it a little different than a lot of people do by starting with like major structure. A lot of people start with internal and then go to major structure, which I kind of think it's better to do it the way we did it. Start with major, go to internal and change the character, and then rewatch the major part and then move forward, and rewatch the change of character and internal part if need be, of course. So I'm just looking at my notes. Just bear with me a second. All right. So one thing I did want to say about like last week, to kind of touch on what I said last week, how I was saying that you could visibly mark out your highs and your lows just kind of by eye, and just kind of mark them out, like obviously not using this tool because you cover everything up, but just visibly kind of marking them out, and then measuring the percentages, dividing it by the number of them, blah, blah, blah. That's one way to add kind of mechanical structure to what it is, your, what you consider your major structure. The other way would be to, like I said, if you're in an uptrend, look for 2 consecutive downtrend candles. So if we're here, we would have seen these 2 here. So we could mark that as a high and then a low. And then we're going up. We're waiting for 2 distribution candles. We have them right here. So this is our high. This is our low, because we have 2 accumulation, because now we're in a downtrend. Then we just keep going down. We're looking for 2 accumulation. We have it right here. So that's our low. So then we go up looking for 2 distribution. We do that. So that, and we would have had another one in here, and so on and so forth. I add that into the way I mark my structure, but it's maybe 25% of it. I like to see those 2 consecutive candles, and sometimes more on lower time frames, but it's only a part. Admittingly, most of the way I mark it is intuitive, what I see, what makes sense. And then I may tweak it with the percentages and the consecutive candles opposing trends, so to speak. So the other thing that leads into the topic that I kind of wanted to talk about was internal structure and change of character. So you can obviously say that this is major structure, right? Like these big swings, but there's a lot of things happening in between in here. And a lot of us learned it as, being like fractal information, which I think is the best way to put it, personally. So a way in which we can kind of mark out what our internal structure is, because sometimes it's not always easy to see like the major structure. Sometimes it's the details are much more minute, much smaller. So what I like to do is I like to follow the wicks, the tops and the bottoms of the wicks in trend. So for instance, in an uptrend, let me zoom in here. In an uptrend right here, okay, I'm going to look for higher highs on the wicks. So we got a high here on the wick. We got a high there. We have a higher high there. But now this one doesn't break this one. So that tells me that that low that created this high, that's my internal low. And this would be my high. Now I switch over to the same thing. Like I'll find where do the how do I put this? So from here, so lower, I'm trying to remember how I wanted to frame this. Bear with me. So here, okay. So now I'm looking for lows to break that low, right? So I have a low here, but then I have a lower low there. So that tells me this low is my low. Now I'm going back to my highs. This high, that breaks that high. This one breaks that one. That one breaks that one. But then we have a lower high. So now that tells me this is my high. Now I switch to the low side. I got a low, but I got a higher low. So I've got a fractal kind of low in there. Then I got a high there. Then I'm switching back to my lows, low, lower low, lower low, lower low, higher low. So this is my new low. So now I look for the same thing. I look for higher highs. Well, I have one high here, right? Because I come off of this low. I have a higher low there, and then this, right? And then now I'm switching to my lows. I've got a lower low, but then a higher low. So that tells me this is my low, right? And then that would be my high. So then I go lower high, lower high, lower low, lower low, lower low, higher low. So that would be my low. That would be my high. I don't recommend this way personally. You can do it on like, slower moving assets, I think, safely. But personally, I think because this is the way a lot of people will teach it, like how to look for highs and lows. I don't agree with it because you're looking at fractal information. You know what I mean? Like all you're looking at is lower time frames. Let's try the 4 hour. You're just looking at lower time frames that you could have easily marked if you would have just went down, so like that one would be tweaked over here, that one stay the same, that one stay the same, that one's just horizontally off, but at same level, same thing. You see what I'm saying? So I don't think that's an optimal way to look, but it is a way in which you can incorporate into the way you mark internal structure. Personally, and I know this isn't the best for back testing and whatnot, I still like marking things intuitively, but by adding those other methods in, the consecutive candles, the percentages, not necessarily percentage on internal, but then the wicks, right? The higher wicks and the lower wicks, depending on what direction you're going. But I think if you mark out your major structure first, right? And then you come back in. Let me see if I can go all the way back to where I had those. Doubt it. Oh, yeah, maybe. Okay. So if we have like our major structure marks in here, now what we could do is we could make this, and you don't have to do this, but you could go into your settings and make this like a lot fainter, like so it's a little less confusing. So now like I can still see it, but it's not, kind of blocking my view on anything. And at this point, I can come back in with my path tool. And essentially what I'm doing is I'm marking major structure on probably the 1 hour and the 15-minute, right? So I'm going to mark this low. I'll change this color in a second. Then that.
Those are kind of light.
Yeah, I know. I'm gonna change. Give me 1 second.
Oh, okay.
Can you not see the first one that I made lighter? Hold on, I'll change it.
Yeah, I mean, I can. I just
okay. Yeah. Well, I made it lighter, so it was because I'm trying to illustrate like to mark internal structure. You can mark your major structure a little lighter. That way, it doesn't kind of, muddy up your screen and kind of make it too much information. You see what I'm saying? All right. Can you see both of those, the orange and the white?
Yes. Thank you.
Okay, cool. So yeah, the orange is our major structure, right? And then 2 of those levels at any given time are going to be our relevant structure. And then within that, we have this white line, which is our internal structure. Okay. Now you can use type 1 or type 2 mapping for your changes of character. Personally, in crypto, I like to use candle closes, which is type type 2 mapping. And then type 1 is where a wick goes through a level. I'm pretty sure we all know what that is, but I'll just kind of mark one just to mark it. We'll just mark this one right here. All right, let me zoom in. All right, so I got this green level. This candle comes out and it wicks it, and then it comes up. So this, if you use type 1 mapping, that's good for you, right? That's a good indication for you for a CHoCH, change of character, or even some people use it for a break of structure. I think that's not a good way to go personally. And then over here, this candle closes through that level, right? Like we can see it close through it. So this would be the type 2 mapping. So you got type 1, which is a wick, and you got type 2, which is the body. For crypto, I think almost always type 2 is best, unless you're looking for a change of character on, like, say, a 12-hour or daily, maybe a weekly. You can use a wick for your change of character. Again, that's completely up to you. It's not there's a right or a wrong way. You just want to do something the same so you can test it, and then if something's not working, you can take away or change one thing and then test it again, see if it's working better. If it's not, maybe change that thing back, or then change another thing, and just that's kind of what you have to do, just over and over and over again. As far as this being our internal structure at this point in time, let me remove this. Okay, so we have our orange one. I'm gonna make this a little brighter because it is a little dim. And then we have, I'll change this one. I don't know why that white is so hard to see. There we go. So we have the orange as our major structure, and then we have this green in here as our internal structure, okay? So like I was saying before, it's really important for a high or a low to do what it was supposed to do, okay? So in an uptrend, let me read it how I have it written here, it'll be better. Okay, so for a change of character to be valid, it has to break a swing that achieved something, right? So like if you're in an uptrend, that high has to have broken the previous one, right? And then the same holds true, but opposite in the downtrend. The low needs to have broken the last low, okay? So in this instance right here, we have two of them, the major one, which is this level, and then we have this level. This level did what it was supposed to. It broke this one and continued its trend. So therefore, this was our low, this was our high, now this is our low, right? And that's our high. Okay, now in internal, it's essentially the same thing. The only difference really kind of is like you can use the type 1 or type 2 mapping, so you can do the wick, and if it wicks for you, like that's all you really need to see. Again, I don't recommend that. I don't do that, but it's up to you. I would just test it, see what you like, you know what I mean, and run with it, and just stick with it for a while and see how it plays out for you. But essentially it needs to have done its job by breaking a level, whether it be a high or a low. That'll depend on the direction of trend. For instance, like in an uptrend, for a low to be considered a proper level for a change of character, it would have had to break a previous high. Then once it comes back down and breaks that low, you'd have your change of character. So let me find it right here. Okay, so this is kind of perfect. So you have right here, you have this high. Let me see if there's a better one here. So that one, I'm just trying to find a better area to do this. All right, I'm going to change something here. I'm going to kind of move this. I'm going to cheat a little bit just to illustrate my point, so I don't spend too much time looking for a perfect area. So at this point in time, let's just say that we had this low and we had this high. Okay, so now when we're looking at these internal structures, we have these. Let's change this code real quick. These are major. Okay, and then these are our minor structures, the green ones. So let's say that's our minor low. Okay. All right. So we got our minor low, or internal low here. And then we have our internal, oh, I need to change that color. Sorry. So sorry. That it's close enough. So this was our internal low. This was our internal high. Now this low, it didn't achieve anything, right? Like it didn't break that last internal low. Okay. Now this high, if you use type 1 mapping, it wicks it, right? So you may consider that a break. And at that point, what you do is you'd move your low to the lowest point in between what needed to be broke and what broke it. Same rules before. You'd move it there. And you can see like it bounces, gets wicked, and then finally closes through, back test it a little bit. And then this one would move up to here. So now this would, if you use that type 1 mapping, this would be your internal high and your internal low. And you can kind of see it getting swept. Like I said, Bitcoin's been like a sweeping little like monster. That's all it does is sweep these important levels. Then eventually it'll have a smaller bounce, which it does here because this one doesn't go lower than that one. And then it'll just dump through. So that's kind of something to look out for. But in this instance, this was the high, this was the low. If you use type 1 mapping, you'd move it to there. What is the highest point between what needed to be broke or what was broken and what broke it? Well, it's the highest point. So that would stay the same in this instance, right? So that stays there. Then we move that to there. Same thing happens again. We get a wick. Now we move the high to there and then this to that. Now, so what I would say is the, change of character is, see, I kind of assign change of characters 2 different strengths. I'll have like an internal change of character and like a fractal change of character, but I'm not going to go too far like into that because again, marking fractal stuff, you can just go down in time frames to mark it. But if you use type 1 mapping, which is the wick, I would say that this right there, let me make that brighter or something bigger. There we go. Can you see that? Okay.
Yeah.
A little pink dash line. Okay. So I would say that is a change of character if you use type 2 mapping, because this wicked that, right? Like it wicked that. So it made a higher high. And then it created a low that did its job by wicking this low. Now, that's if you use type 1 mapping. If you use type 2 mapping, which I prefer to use, and it may cause you to miss some moves, but I don't know, it tends to keep me a little safer. So this would have been my change of character for a type 2 mapping, right? Because we had this, it broke that low, and then we're now in a downtrend, and then we lost that low. So we have this, but you can see what I'm saying by the strength of the move, like I've been saying, like the EQ, the 25 and the 25 or 25 and 75% mark of the EQ. So like here, which is this low to this high, and then this will be our EQ. like we're pushing above that, right? But now this is like our internal range here. So we go low to high, and then like, look, it comes almost up to the EQ right there, like just shy of it. So that's the premium discount thing. EQ, however you want to put it, is really good. And not just using the 50%, but using the 25% and the 75. And that'll also kind of tell you the strength you have left in a move. I won't go too like deep into it, but like this one, this is your new low, that's your high. This is your EQ. Like it didn't even come up to it. It came to its, I'm going to mark it roughly here. Damn, I need to remark that. It was this one, that, and then that would be there. Okay, yeah. So yeah, so the 25% mark would be like right there, which that's what it hit. Because if I drag that all the way up to here, and I say this is my 50%, what is my halfway point between here and here? Well, roughly speaking, it's like right here, which is exactly where it came. So that tells me there's a lot more strength in the move down. Now, if it would have come up to the EQ, it would be kind of like, well, it either just started or it's kind of fizzling out a little bit, but it's still probably moving in that direction. If it would have come up to the 75% mark, I'd be like, okay, we're probably nearing the end. And then when obviously when it comes up to the top, the 0%, that is what tells me like, all right, this move is most likely almost right at its end. And that's when what we would know as Sean calls like an origin level, right? Or a line or row of liquidity is happening for them to kind of grab liquidity and move, either sweep up and then continue to move down, or vice versa. Sweep up, grab enough liquidity and find the sentiment that's in their favor to move up, and then back test what they broke, and then boom, move off. But essentially, like, changes of character are just that. They're more times than not, they tend to be a lower time frames break of structure. So if we go down to where we at, the 4 hours, so let's go to the 15-minute. This is probably breaks of structure, like major structure on the 15-minute. Yeah. See, and now you can see like they're off horizontally. Those are two. They're off horizontally, but a little bit, but they're right at the highs and the lows that are like the major ones, right? Like those are kind of major. Let's see what the 1 hour looks like. Maybe decently marked on that one as well. Yeah, they're pretty good on the 1 hour. I thought it would be a little lower, but yeah, they're pretty good on the 1 hour. So in the 1 hour, we got a low, a major high, low, high, high, low, high. See? So when we go back to let's go to the daily, it probably looks like just like little, I don't have them visible. I don't have them visible. But even if we go back to the 4 hour, you can see like they're obviously not major structure, right? Like they're just kind of these little, internal tiny moves in between. Why is that not showing up? I don't know why that's not showing up on the daily. It's marked to be, oops. Oh, there it is. I guess I just didn't go far enough. So like on the daily, like it's like what I was saying before, how we would, how you could mark by going by wicks. You can see right here, higher wick. Oh, not a higher wick. So what was the low in between that? What was that? Okay. Then we got a low, a lower low, but a higher low. So now this is our low. And then the most recent is our high, so on and so forth. And you can see, as long as there's lower lows made, that would be fine to use in this instance. We have a high here, so that moves up. So You see, it's all fractal. Like that's why I say marking things on a singular time frame and not getting too detailed with it, but just combining all those time frames together, writing out that story that you see, and the change of characters, and assigning different like value to them, right? Like, because the change of character on a 1 minute, I mean, you're going to have 1,000 of those like every few hours, whereas a change of character on a daily, you're not going to have them so often, right? Just because of, the higher time frames and how many 1 minute candles there are in a daily. Maybe it'll be easier. Okay, so let's kind of just recap like what we just went over, even though I'm sure most understand it. But if Rebecca or you or Ben have like a question or something you think I should touch on, please let me know. I'm just going to do like a quick drawing like really fast. Oops. Okay, and then do another one here. And let's change that color to purple. Okay, so let's just say that this is the information that we're seeing on whatever time frame it is that we're looking at, right? Let me put this here. So we'll just say that this is the daily, and I'd probably say 4 hour. Okay, so that is the daily and the 4 hour. Make it a little bigger. Okay, so this is where we have our daily and our 4 hour. Now, obviously, the green line is our major structure. All right. So then we have over here. Let me move this down a little bit. Yeah. That. Click that. Okay. All right. So now if this green line is our major structure on the daily, the purple is our 4 hour major structure. Okay. But when we're looking at the daily, our 4 hour information is giving us our internal structure. And the 4 hours, what we're looking at for our changes of character. Okay. So let me change these to the same yellow. I think it's this one. So change these to yellow, green, or whatever. Now, those are our daily major structure, and the purple is our 4 hour major structure, but it is also our internal or minor structure that we view on the daily. Is there, I'm sure everybody understands like what I'm saying there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me do like our what would our changes of character be on here? Okay, so let's say we're in this uptrend, right? We have a high, a higher low, a higher high, a higher low, higher high, a higher low, and oh, that's what I wanted to change. No, I didn't. Yeah, that's good. And then we have a lower high, right? And then let's say right here, okay, whenever this was our high, this was our low, these are what needed to be broken. Okay. It's the same thing as like the major structure. Like when we're looking for the break of structure, but the only difference is it's more minute information, right? But it's still the same thing. All right. So at this point in time, this was our low and this was our high. Now, this did not break this, nor did this. So they don't really mean anything to us on this time frame. It's not to say they don't mean anything, but just not on this time frame, right? So those do not give us our change of character, because what a lot of people will do is this kind of number here. They'll come in and they'll mark this low, and they'll be like, all right, yeah, here's my my change of character, right? They'll mark that little green segmented line as their change of character, which is it's not true, you know, like that is probably a change of character on the 4 hour, but it's not on the daily right here. The change of character on the daily is when either this high or this low gets taken out. Now, in this instance, let me move this down to make that a little more accurate of an explanation. So in this instance, this was the high we needed to break, and this was the low. So this, it didn't mean anything to us on this time frame. Sure, we can see it fractally and we can use it, but not on this time frame. It's important. This one, however, did, right? Like it did break this low. It made a newer low. So this, to me, would be your change of character. Right? I'm just move that down there. I'll move this over here. So right there is your change of character. Okay. Oops. There. That's your change of character. So it's important to remember that a high or a low has to do what it was supposed to do. It has to have broken something. It has to have achieved something for it to be considered a relevant level, whether it be for major structure or whether you're using it for minor structure, substructure, whatever you want to call it, right? It has to have achieved something. This low and this high, they didn't achieve anything on this time frame, so they don't mean anything to us on this time frame. All right. This one does. So once this happens, this is our change of character. Now, would we want to like come in here and would we want to come in here and be like, all right, I'm going to take a trade in here? Well, yeah, maybe you could have, right? Like maybe it would have worked out for you. You could have shorted it and it would have went down. But a lot of times it'll do kind of this number here. You know what I mean? It'll come back up and it'll like hit the, you know, the body or the wick of that, you know, very high point that hasn't been tested by anything really yet. And then it'll dump down. So at that point, all this did was make a higher high to this, right? Because this is what needed to be broken. This didn't do it. This didn't do anything, but this did. So that changes things for us. So now our level that we need for a change of character is here. That, and let me move there. So now that's our change of character at this point. It wouldn't have been, it wouldn't have been, it could have been this, you could have used that, but that's why you don't use change of character like to base a trade off of, right? It's one piece and it's a small piece. It's, you know, that's one little fragment. I would say it's probably 15%, maybe 20, 25 max. I mean, that's the way I would consider it weight wise, relevant wise. You want to pair that with, you know, things like in, you know, areas of inefficiency, flips, you know, good like order blocks or liquidity, like, you know, zones. There's so many different ways to put it, but it's not, that's unimportant right now. What's important is looking for what could happen, very well may happen. So we're not going to base a trade off of something as insignificant as a change of character. but it also doesn't mean that it doesn't matter at all. It's just one of those first steps or signs that will tell us maybe trend is changing in the other direction, right? So in this instance, like we're in an uptrend, and this was our high, this was our low, new high, new low, didn't break it, so it didn't achieve anything. Now this one did, so you technically did have a change of character in here, but I'm only marking this because this just goes to show you using a change of character, solely a change of character, is not a smart move, right? So it comes down, you have a change of character, creates a new low, this low creates another high, so you switch trends again. So you started a downtrend here, but then you changed it and you went into an uptrend internally. But all the while, major structure is still showing you're in an uptrend. And this, I think, speaking for myself, is why, and I think for a lot of people, is like why we would take trades, right? And we'd be like, man, this is a sweet level. This is going to work perfect. One of the reasons why it'll oftentimes come and stop you out and then just like run in the direction you thought it was going to is because of that right there, because of we're not keeping in mind like where are we at in each time frame's trend, right? Because every time frame is either in a impulse move or a pullback, all of them, even if they're sideways consolidation, as a lot of people like to put it, there are still majority of time frames are either in an impulse up or a pullback down, and those can be flipped. So in a downtrend you can have, or in an uptrend, I'm sorry, you can have an impulse up and then a pullback down, but then in a downtrend you can have a pullback up and an impulse down. It all depends on the direction of the trend and the time frame in which you're looking at.